So now that we have covered these first 3 points, we're going to get into selecting your first brand name based on where you're at this stage. So before we get into it, I'm going to explain the two places you could be at right now while you watch this video. Number one is that you know exactly who your target audience is. You know the resultant product line that you're going to provide to that audience. Now, this is really less likely that you're in that boat. It's abnormal for sellers to, off the bat, know exactly what they're doing unless they do have prior experience. Nonetheless, this is one set of sellers who know exactly their niche and that's what they're focusing on. We have a strategy for them. Number two, which is much more likely, is that you're at the stage watching this video where you are unsure of the exact audience you're targeting and the resultant product line. And that can hang over you. That can be a bit of a burden, but we're going to give you a strategy that's going to allow you to get going today without being held up and without having to identify your exact audience or product line. So those are the two sets. Let's start off with the less likely option where you know your niche. In this case, you may choose to be more descriptive with your brand name. You know the target audience and you need to identify them exactly. Not just, oh, I'm selling in the kitchen niche. You need to know, okay, the kitchen niche, in the kitchen niche, who is my exact customer? Where is my sub niche within the kitchen niche? For example, it could be stay-at-home mums between the age of 30 and 50 who want to save time in the kitchen. That is a sub-niche. Now you're really targeting in on a specific audience within that broader niche. So definitely, if you do know the niche, the outline of what you're going to be selling and who you're selling to, make sure you identify exactly who that customer is. It's going to be really important for coming up with subsequent products and making sure your product is targeted exactly to the needs of a specific individual. You're going to choose a name that resonates with that exact audience member. If it resonates with them, it's going to resonate with the other people just like them. So it could be something that describes the product itself. It could be something that describes the benefits that the consumer will gain by using that product. So for example, it could be something like Kitchen Labs, it could be Cookery Co, it could be Easy Cook, it could be anything like that. Because we know exactly what our audience wants, we know exactly what product line we're doing, we have no risk in making it highly descriptive. We've chosen that niche, and so it's worth actually going all in, being descriptive with the brand name and adding that descriptive value to our products by having the descriptive brand name on them. In the more likely scenario, you do not know what your exact niche is. In this case, you're going to avoid being too descriptive. For example, if you did choose to go with a name like Kitchen Labs, that would be quite silly, because now what are you going to do if you start selling in an area outside of kitchen? What if you do pet supplies? Kitchen Labs are going to look really strange on a pet supply product. And that would be even worse if you've gone ahead and trademarked Kitchen Labs and spent money on doing that. So in this case, you're going to stay away from being too descriptive and stay away from locking yourself into one department on Amazon. You want to keep those doors open for now. You're going to go with a fanciful or arbitrary name. And we're going to get into exactly what that means. But at first, you want to go with a very unique, made up, random, arbitrary name. And later, once you figure out exactly where your niche is, who your target customer is, and what you're doing with that product line, then we take the fanciful name and we can target it specifically at that audience. So you could choose something like Brontix, which is an example of a fanciful or arbitrary name. This can sound really strange at first. If you're new to just coming up with arbitrary names, it can seem meaningless and just silly. But think about some big brand names you know. Think about Rolex. Rolex was an arbitrary name, but because of the quality of the products and their delivery to their customers over time, Rolex gained huge brand value, and no one thinks that name is silly anymore. The strategy behind this arbitrary, fanciful approach is this. Start out by getting the type of name that you have chosen as a .com domain name on social media sites. So let's say, for example, you did choose a name like Brontix, and it was available as a .com on social sites. You could go ahead and do that as a step one. Step two is that you're going to figure out your target audience over time. Now, that's not to say you don't launch one or two Brontix random products before you figure that out, but over time you're going to figure out exactly who you're aiming to serve and the resultant products that they want as a result of their goals and their problems. So you're going to target that brand name like Brontix with terms that describe the products, industries, or even that target audience that you serve, or the benefits you're giving to them. You're going to use an additional phrase with the arbitrary name that makes it super targeted at them later and makes it seem as though you came up with that name for that audience. For example, what if you chose Brontix today and in 2 months' time you were set on a specific niche, such as a kitchen brand? You could do Brontix kitchenware with a specific font and color and design using your brand elements cleverly. What about camera or electronics accessory brand? Brontix Film Co. What about arts and craft brand? You could come up with Brontix Art Supplies. What about tools or DIY? You could come up with Brontix Industrial. And so this way you can see that just by using your brand elements cleverly, adding a little unique phrase, you can really target this in as though it were made for that specific customer. So why would we do this? Why would that be effective? The strategy where you don't know what your niche is. First of all, this is effective because you can start today. You don't have to hold off. You don't have to wait for these steps. You can start right now and get moving. And in our opinion, that is more important than outlining your perfect niche and brand name and this whole naming structure perfectly. Rather get moving quickly so that you can learn as you go. Number two, it keeps all of your options open, so you can sell in any department on Amazon. Three, you're able to easily target that audience with the use of fonts, colors, and all those different brand elements and the addition of the targeting phrase. And four, tied into that, importantly, you're going to be using a targeting phrase that is a public asset in a sense. And what I mean by that is by putting, for example, industrial after your trademark, you're in no way going to be infringing on someone else's trademark because industrial is seen as a public asset. It's not arbitrary enough for someone else to go and trademark. It's used in everyday language. You and I could use that while in normal conversation. And so industrial itself is a public asset. You can easily add that to your brand name. In fact, any brand could. So guys, I hope you found value in this and that this path is a little bit more clear for you. You know exactly what your next steps are. We are going to get way more into branding as we move forward. So don't worry if you still have a couple of questions. Just think big, start small, act fast, and get moving with this. And I will see you guys in the next video.